We got a big Rams injury update and why they're going to beat the Eagles on Sunday. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you want to do us a huge favor, head to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. SI, Bleacher Report, 24/7 Sports, Dodgers Nation, the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. And on today's show, we're giving our keys to victory. How can the Rams upset the Eagles on Sunday Night Football? Got an injury report. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Travis, let's dive right into it. Some quick injury updates before we dive into the preview. The big one I'm looking at is Rob Havenstein. So Rob Havenstein, he's been out. The update on Havenstein is Sean McVay said on Monday there is a chance he will be back for Sunday's game against the Eagles. He's missed the last 2 games, so still waiting on more of a concrete verdict on that. Kobe Durant did show up on the injury report. He has a thigh injury, but he was a limited participant, so that's a good sign. Likely you'll see him in there. Then KT Livingston, he returned to practice for the first time. He's a full participant. He needs to be activated from the IR before he can play. He's going to be a backup. He's going to provide depth even if he gets in there, but he didn't even play in a preseason game. But the big one is Rob Havenstein, and will he go on Sunday?
Yeah, look, obviously you'd much rather have Havenstein than not have him. He is your most experienced lineman. He's the guy that you really don't have to worry about all that much as far as assignments go and whatnot. You know, if he's there, that's good news. I think the silver lining in all of this is even if he doesn't go, the same 5 guys that would go, so obviously you put McClendon in his spot, were the same 5 guys that went last week. And you know, the more I think about it, the more people that I talk to, you'd rather have your best guys. Obviously, that goes without saying. But what you really are looking for are the same guys week to week. That even if there maybe you have a backup here or there, as long as it's the same week to week and you're not having wholesale changes, you're not 2 new guys every week, 2 different guys this week, 1 guy comes back, another guy goes out, and you're constantly trying to find the same 5 pieces that work together. I think that's where you really get in trouble. I think that's why they looked as bad as they looked against the Miami Dolphins, where you put 2 brand new guys in there. You put Joe Noteboom back on the right side where he hadn't been for a while, and it looked like those guys had never played together. That the cohesion and the execution of those 5 guys collectively needs to be together. That it can't just be this guy's good, this guy isn't. So even if Havenstein doesn't go, having the same 5 guys from the last week, I think will make we'll at least be able to mitigate that to some point.
It's going to be huge. And Sean McVay did talk about the conversation with Jonah Jackson, how much of a pro he is. And what that tells me is that this team is hell-bent on finding the best combination that's going to give them a chance to go on a run to end the season, find a way to make into the playoffs. And Rob Havenstein, he's been a rock. I almost feel like we've taken him for granted for the past couple of seasons because he has been so durable. He's a guy that does go out there and post. And if he comes back, Bo Limmer continues his play. Steve Avila continues to get back to where he was. Kevin Dotson and Alaric Jackson, they've been solid all season long. You have to feel good about this offensive line play. But watching Sean McVay's show, and he was asked about 3rd down offense and converting on 3rd down and 4th downs. And yeah, I mean, he usually has a good way of kind of sugarcoating answers and responses. And he said, period, point blank, they need to be better on 3rd downs. And that's one thing I'm looking for. The first key to a win over the Eagles is find a way to execute on 3rd down. If you look at the Rams this season, 27th in the NFL on 3rd down conversion rate. They're the worst 3rd and 4th down team combined from a passing standpoint in the NFL. And then you combine that with the fact that Kyle Williams averaging 3.9 yards per carry compared to 5 last year. It explains some of the red zone struggles when the field gets smaller and you need guys to step up, make plays. It just has not happened this season as far as executing on third down.
Yeah, it has not been something they've been particularly good at, and I think a lot of it has to do is what type of third downs they're getting. These are not a bunch of 3rd and 1s and 2s. These are a bunch of 3rd and 6s and 7s that, you're going to convert on 3rd and 1 and 2. You're probably not going to convert on 3rd and 6 and 7. It's just it's hard to move the ball 6 yards in one play in the NFL. I go back to the heyday of the McVay offense, and we've seen it a couple of different times when they're really cooking. The Rams are 1st and 10, they're 2nd and 2, they're 1st and 10, they're 2nd and 4, 3rd and 1. That they really are never behind the chains in any meaningful way, and they're certainly not in 3rd and long situations very often. That's something that they've struggled with, like you mentioned. I agree that that's a point of emphasis to be sure. I think coming into this one, for me at least, D-Mag, the biggest thing, they have to play from in front. If they fall behind, they're going to get smashed. They simply cannot deal with Saquon Barkley if they're playing from behind. If they're even up with the Eagles, or even better yet, they're ahead, then it neutralizes Barkley to a degree that you just can't grind clock with him, that you got to play it straight up. But if the Eagles get up by 7 points, 10 points, 14 points, that's it. They're just going to hammer you with Saquon Barkley and then hit you with some big plays other places. So, I kind of think of the way that the Minnesota Vikings game started, where Vikings get the ball, go down and score. Rams answered with a score of their own. Vikings get the ball, score again. Rams answer with a score of their own. And they were able to kind of hold serve, for lack of a better phrase. They're going to have to do the same with Philadelphia, and even better, play from ahead. Because if you play from ahead, then the Eagles can't just lean on Barkley the way that they have. Barkley's having a terrific year, and if he's able to just kind of hammer them over and over again, that is a losing recipe. So I think for the Rams to play from ahead or at least not play from behind is a huge, huge deal.
Could not agree more. And the funny thing about that is, if you look at both of these teams, they're two of the worst first quarter teams in the National Football League when it comes to points. The Rams averaging 1.3 points per game in the first quarter. Crazy. The Eagles 1.4 points per game in the first quarter. So Crazy. Which team strikes first? It's more important for the Rams to put some points on the board and try to force Jalen Hurts into more volume passing, because really his season turned around when he was throwing the football less. They were going with the run more. And Saquon Barkley, as you mentioned, I mean, he's someone that's firmly in the MVP mix at this point. Sure. 1,137 yards. I mean, absolutely dominating this season. You look at since their bye, I mean, he's averaging 6.2 yards per carry. And this Eagles team, they're leading the NFL with 181.3 rushing yards per game. That's ahead of the Ravens. That's ahead of the Lions. I mean, look at the gap. The Lions averaging 152.2 yards per game. So this is a rushing attack that once they get going, they can steamroll teams and they can really put them into submission. And I think if you're the Rams, that is the key, is you have to flip the script on these first quarter issues. You know there's going to be a strong Eagles contingent. It's Sunday Night Football. And this Rams team has lacked the ability to hit on explosives, right? They're one of the worst in the NFL on explosive plays. It'd be nice to see. I mean, we saw Cooper Kupp, that 69-yard catch and touchdown on the cover zero. Just something break their way early to get some sort of lead, to give them some momentum.
Yeah, look, the momentum, I agree with you, is incredibly important. And the other part, too, is, this kind of goes back with Barkley and scoring first. The way you deal with Barkley the best is have him stand on the sidelines waiting to come into the game. The Rams have had a bunch of short drives, especially early in the game. You're talking 3 and out, maybe a first down here or there, and you punt the ball away. I would love to see them really kind of flip the script on him, rely on Kyren Williams a lot. I know I've said this a bunch of times, maybe see more Blake Corum and really control the clock. Take some shots with Matthew Stafford when the situation dictates it. Play that short passing game that we've seen with Sean McVay and with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua to a degree. But, limit the possessions. That if you give Saquon Barkley a bunch of shots at it, he's going to pop 1 or 2. And you give Jalen Hurts, a two-way go, he's really hard to deal with. But if you know that they got to play from behind, if he's got to become a pass-first quarterback, and especially with the Rams defense playing the way that it has, and they can go back and get the quarterback, that's the key to success.
No doubt about it. That is the number one key to success when it comes to neutralizing Jalen Hurts. And we'll talk about more Jalen Hurts. Also, I want to talk about a take I saw from an Eagles podcaster and some outrageous claims that the Eagles have an advantage over the Rams in this category. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Locked On Rams is sponsored by BetterHelp. So we kind of want to say thank you to people in our life, right? So a quick shout out to my high school baseball coach, who was a big part of my development as a person and as an athlete, and somebody that I think about quite a bit. And this month, it's all about gratitude and saying thank you. And along with that person that I just mentioned, there's another person we don't get enough of, and that is ourselves, right? It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, it's not easy, right? So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. And therapy, this is a very good way to thank yourself, to take care of yourself. And if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. You'll get matched with a licensed therapist. And if for whatever reason you're just not jiving with that therapist, it doesn't quite click the way that you'd like it to, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked on. Also, it's that time of year where it seems like just about everything is going on, right? We've got the NFL. We're getting into the meat of that. The NBA is going on. The NHL is going on, right? And especially here in Southern California, we got two of everything: two hockey, two basketball, two football. There's all sorts of stuff going on. So Gametime is your way to get to those events, to make sure that you're not missing out on tickets, to not make sure that you're missing out on some priority deals, that you can kind of go in and curate exactly what you want with Gametime. It makes it even easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is that you're into. Of course, you're going to get your seat views. Of course, you're going to get your lowest price guarantee, or Gametime's going to hook you up with 110% of the difference. All this stuff that you come to expect from Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also want to send a special shout out there to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Thank you enough. We want to see your predictions down below. Give me those score predictions for this Sunday. But Travis, here we're going to pick it up in our second segment. Lots of keys to get into. But the biggest Eagles podcast, apparently, their host, Elliot Shore-Parks, he dropped his Week 12 predictions where he ranks which team has the advantage. And he has the Eagles having the advantage of quarterback. He has Hurts over Stafford. Running back, okay, I'll concede that one. Saquon over Kyron. Tight end, wide receiver, offensive line. He gives the Rams the advantage on the D-line. The Eagles the advantage of linebacker. And this is the one that really grinded my gears. He has Sirianni as elite, and he has Sean McVay as just slightly above average. I don't know if you can get CTE from podcasting, but this one makes no sense at all whatsoever.
So, Doug, I have a rule. There's some stuff that is so stupid I don't respond to it. So let's move on.
Okay, there you go.
This is designed to provoke outrage. I'm not going to give him what he wants. That's wrong. What else?
It really brings me to my next point on the Eagles is, look, this Eagles team, 6-game winning streak. They've been on fire, one of the hottest teams in the NFL. But I think we're going to find out just how good this Eagles team is against a Rams team that's getting healthy. There's a lot to play for on Sunday. Because if you look at this Eagles schedule, they're 2-1 against teams that are headed to the playoffs at this point. If you look at their game against the Packers in week 1, 34-29 win. They beat the Commanders. They've been dealing with some stuff. But look at all those other wins. You beat the Browns. You beat the Giants. You beat the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Cowboys. I mean, I think this Eagles team is really good, but I don't think they're proven like another team like the Ravens or the Chiefs or the Bills or even the Detroit Lions. I think that we still have a lot to learn about this Eagles team, and I think we're going to find out a lot about them on Sunday. I think the Rams have a great opportunity to kind of do what the Dolphins did to us. My bad. I did the whole thing where I act like I'm on the team by saying us. I know you're not one of those guys. What they did to the Rams.
Sure. It's funny you brought up the Dolphins, because I was going to say this is kind of the other side of that Dolphins coin. The Dolphins were not nearly as bad as their record indicated, mostly because they had played without their quarterback for a long period of time. The Eagles may not be as good as their record indicates. The record is terrific, and they've earned their record. And, you know, you never apologize for winning games in the NFL, but you're right. This is not littered with teams that we know are going to be in the playoffs and teams that are going to be dangerous in the playoffs. It doesn't mean that the Eagles are not a good team. I think they've got a lot of good players, and I think they're playing well. So take that for what it's worth. But I agree with you. This is not they beat the Lions or the Chiefs or the Bills. This is, okay, they beat the teams that are in front of them. Good for you. I think that a lot of this kind of stuff comes down to, especially at this point of the season, who needs it more, right? And I know that's a little cliche, but I think it's also very true that the Eagles are very, very likely to win the NFC East. The Commanders are the only other team that isn't awful, and they're better than the Commanders. Like, when you just kind of the eye test tells you that they're better there, and I think that they're going to win that division, and I think they know it, and I think that their playoff spot is very, very secure. The Rams are going to have to win a game that nobody's expecting them to win. They're going to have to find a win against Philadelphia, against Buffalo, San Francisco, Arizona. These games, Seattle is a division game too. The Rams went to overtime with them the first time. You can't lose all of those and find a way into the playoffs. You're going to have to win one or two of those. This is a big opportunity. I think the Rams were only okay against New England, and they won the game. I think from everything that I'm hearing, Sean McVay was not particularly pleased with the way that they won that game, the fact that it was as close as it was, and that, kind of redoubling some efforts, kind of to use some coach speak, some points of emphasis coming into this game on Sunday night. I think you're going to see a lot of Kyren. I think you're going to see a physical football team. And, the records might not indicate that these two teams are probably fairly evenly matched, but I think that they are, and I think the Rams have a very good chance.
I do too. I really, truly believe that. I think that it's going to come down to, can the Rams offense score points on this vaunted defense? Because Vic Fangio, it's taken some time, but this defense has really started clicking. They're right at the top in a lot of defensive categories in the NFL. I mean, you look at how this defense has performed on this stretch. I mean, they're allowing 273.1 yards per game. That's the best in the NFL. They've allowed the fewest first downs. They give them the fewest net yards per attempt. They have balled out. And this is a Rams offense that we know kind of what they are. It's, will Matthew Stafford make mistakes? Will we get 4 touchdown Stafford, or the one that went 6 games throwing interceptions? Puka Nacua, the touchdown catch you made, that was the least probable touchdown catch of the season when you look at the probability rate. And Cooper Kupp, he's coming alive. I do want to see more Davis Allen. I want to point that out. Davis Allen is someone that's kind of been quietly worked more into this Rams offense. In the last couple of weeks, you've seen the snap count go up, but you haven't seen as many targets. Through the first 11 games, he has 6 catches. 5 of those came against Miami. I think you need to find that third option with Demarcus Robinson, with Davis Allen, someone that kind of keeps them honest when the point of emphasis is Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. So you want to see a better version of Kyren Williams as well, but it really comes down to, will the Rams put up points against this Eagles defense, and can this Rams defense contain this running quarterback? Because we've seen a couple times this season the missed tackles against the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray, the missed tackles against Brock Purdy. They were able to win that game, but we know that missed tackles was an issue early on with this defense, and one of the big reasons why they turned around is they've cleaned that up a bit.
Look, you got another running quarterback you're going to have to play before too long, too. Josh Allen is coming to town, and that might be the toughest assignment of them all outside of Lamar Jackson as far as a two-way guy goes. I like what you said. They're going to have to get better in the areas that you mentioned. And I'll ask you a quick question because I think it kind of informs where the Rams are at this point. How many times do you think that they've played well this season, that they've looked like, and I'm talking offensively exclusively. The defense, I think we've kind of come to understand is actually pretty good. How many times do you think this team has looked good on offense this year?
Yeah, I would say the opening game, really, there were some stretches against Detroit where they're efficient, and it was hope springs eternal in week one. You had some moments against San Francisco where they looked really good. I mean, the Patriots game, there was some moments in the first half, really, with Puka Nacua. Puka's first game back, I would say the first half, he looked really good. But yeah, for the most part, this is a team that from first quarter to the fourth quarter, it's a roller coaster ride with this team. They're not going to blow out a lot of teams. You're going to have moments of wow for Matthew Stafford. Then you're going to see some frustration. And that's why I kind of all my hope in this team is that your best football is in front of you.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah. And I think they've played well on offense twice. I think Detroit, they were good. And I think Minnesota, they were good. Okay, they played 10 games. Now if they've been good on offense twice and they're 5-5, that means they're in a weird way, they're better than their record shows, because you would think that with two good offensive performances, you're only going to win 2 or 3 games. Well, they've won 5. And I think if they can find a way to become more consistent, to do all the things that we've talked about, to find that groove that we've seen Sean McVay teams have in the past, that we've seen Matthew Stafford have in LA in the past, they can become a dangerous team. Now, there's no guarantee that it's coming. This just may be their lot where they're inconsistent all season long, especially on the offensive side. But I think there's a silver lining that they are 5-5. They're very much in the hunt. And I would argue that offensively, they've only looked pretty sharp for the whole game. There's been moments, like you mentioned, San Francisco. That was a great finish, but that wasn't a very good game. That was just a strong finish. San Francisco, is a good example of how good Matthew Stafford can be at the end of a game and as a closer. But just from beginning to end, we've really only seen 2 really good performances. And if they can get 2 or 3 or 4 more over the last 7 games, that's a 10-win team, and you're off to the playoffs where anything can happen.
Absolutely. And in the game that you referenced, the Vikings game, it was a TNF game. It felt like a game that you had to win to keep those playoff hopes alive. And Puka comes back, has over 100 yards receiving. Cooper Kupp has a solid game, and Kyren Williams almost has 100 yards rushing. Reason why this team went on a run last year is they were pounding the rock that opened up the pass, and you had more balance. We need to see Kyren Williams like we saw last season. He has 3 fumbles. The turnovers have been up. I mean, turnovers have been issues for him. You got the wet willy happening. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with you, too. I mean, that's why this team's record is deceiving, because, I mean, you would almost take 5-5 considering how inconsistent they've been.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They are very, very fortunate to be 5-5. They have not played 5-5 football, but, like Bill Parcells says, you are what your record says you are, and they're 5-5.
Yeah, certainly. This could be the Jador Sanders episode of Locked On Rams, right? Based on how some of these things have broken, right? So you will kind of take that, especially when the guys come back. But coming up next, some more talk about this Sunday night showdown. How could this thing play out? I'm throwing out a prediction. I don't know if Travis is, but I got my prediction. I think you guys kind of know which way I'm leaning. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right. If you are a renter, you should start taking advantage of Built. Here's the thing. You can earn points on groceries, or we all do, really. Groceries, travel, practically everything else that we all buy. But you should also be earning points on rent, one of our biggest monthly expenses, right? Home, your housing is always a big expense. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high-value points on rent and around their neighborhood. So there's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world where you can redeem your Built points. Points can be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, the question is, Why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by joining, or I should say, by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use the URL so they know that we sent you there. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl to start earning points on your rent payments today.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, Travis. So Sunday, really, I do think this is a make or break game for the Rams. I truly think that you have to find a way to win a game that you're not supposed to win. You're really slight underdogs when you look at a team on a 6-game winning streak at SoFi Stadium, which never really scares away odds makers. I think Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, a more stable offensive line, a defense that has led the league in pressure up front. Cornerbacks are a weakness, but the safeties have sort of made up for that in some of the schemes by Chris Shula. I think the Rams have been circling this game as this is how we're going to almost define the last part of our season. If you win on Sunday, you got momentum again. You beat a team that could win the NFC. I think you're back in the mix. You lose on Sunday, and you could be right in the middle of the draft order when season ends. So I got the Rams winning 26-24. Okay, Rams guy picks the Rams, big deal, but still 26-24.
Yeah, I'll take it. I think it's going to be I like what you said. They need to get some momentum. And it's weird because, they've won 4 out of their last 5, which is hard to do in the NFL. It's very hard to do, to win 4 out of 5 games. But I really don't know if they've ever had any momentum, right? There's been the Raider win was not particularly, exciting or momentum building. The New England win, same kind of deal. You're playing a bad team that you win and you're supposed to, but does it really fill you with confidence? They're still waiting for another moment like they had against Minnesota, where you're really anxious to kind of roll into that next one. This is one of those moments. We know Sean McVay's pretty good when everybody's watching. Sunday Night Football is one of those moments where everybody's watching. They need to win this game because, like you said, you fall to 5-6, you're not out of it, but you're not super in it either. So you got New Orleans on the backside of it, and now maybe you're 6-6 again, and we're right back where we are sitting here right now. They're going to have to get on the high side of 500 at some point because we know those games are coming against Buffalo, San Francisco, and some other division games. So you're going to have to put a little bit of money in the bank. And this feels like the one that you can do that against for all the reasons that we've been talking about. I think there's probably a little more points than you do. I think the winner is probably in the 30s. I think that the first one to get to 30 wins this game. If it's, Philadelphia gets ahead early, they're just going to grind you up, like I mentioned right off the top. And if the Rams are going to win this game, they're going to have to score points. I don't think this can be played in the low 20s or the teens. You're going to have to score to beat Philly because I think they're going to score some points too. And, I'll put a 31-28, 31-27, something like that. I think that's the final score. Whoever gets the 31st wins this game.
I like that. I'll take a shootout, and I just think the Birds are beatable. Like you mentioned,
Sure.
They're a team that's not desperate. The Rams really need to be playing desperate for the rest of the season. I also want to point out turnovers, game, drive-ending penalties. You can't have that. Convert on third down, convert in the red zone.
Great point.
The Eagles, 6-0 this season when they force a team to a turnover. When they don't, they're 2-2. Rams 0-3 when they have 2 turnovers in a game, and 5-2 when they have 1 or 0 turnovers. So you mentioned the Vikings game. 1 turnover, you can live with that. But 0 turnovers is ideal. Play clean football. I think you're going to have a chance to win. And that's when you have a chance to win, that's when I trust Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. And hopefully Joshua Carty can make his kicks. We don't have any doinks.
Yeah, well, he's officially on the clock after that miss. And the fact that they punted from their 34-yard line, I think, speaks volumes about how Sean McVay feels about Josh Carty. So we'll see how that plays out. You brought up a great point, Doug. I just kind of want to underline it. They can't do. They've done something stupid 3 weeks in a row. Puka getting kicked out of a game was stupid. Bobby Brown getting that penalty was stupid. Jared Verse getting that penalty, pulling the guy off the pile, was stupid. They cannot afford to have one of those. All 3 of those could have cost their team the game. They cannot have one of those. This is the best team they've played in a while. They got to avoid that. And I think that's a great point by you.
100%. My big fear, though, is I don't know how the Rams can overcome such a coaching disadvantage, though. Sirianni over McVay. Maybe McVay will be at his very best, but you have the one-time Super Bowl losing head coach in Sirianni. It's going to be tough, right?
Don't let him have what he wants.
I know. Gosh, I took the bait, right? I took the rage bait. I got it. But that's going to
I'm a little bit older than you. Maybe a little bit more experienced, maybe a little bit more jaded. But that's one of those things like when your kid wants to fight with you. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. No.
Man, I'll do a whole segment off a random comment on YouTube, okay? So we're the exact opposites. I got to stay petty with it. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.